Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Nigeria's military is about to embark on an operation tagged Operation Crocodile Smile 4, with a mission to rid the creeks and waterways in the southwest of the country of oil thieves, kidnappers, armed robbers, and other miscreants. Another stated mission of the exercise is to put a stop to the practice of taking oil in a way that pollutes the ecosystem. Great vision, one may say, but what's more striking is the anxiety demonstrated by a lot of Nigerians anytime specialized military exercises of this nature are embarked upon. Military commanders have been accused of adopting a high-handed approach most times in the execution of such assignments. But how true is this? If there is any merit to this criticism, how then can the Nigerian military begin to disabuse the minds of the citizens that, if anything, it should not be seen as an army of occupation? We have now been joined from Arise Abuja studio for a chat on this by Dr. Ndu Nwokolo, development specialist, who is also the senior policy and research head at next year XPD, Security, Peace and Development. Dr. Nwokolo, welcome to the morning show.
Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yes, very good. Thank you too for honoring our invitation. Quickly, the police, the military has launched Operation Crocodile Smile 4, and they are planning to address challenges of banditry, kidnapping, oil theft, the environment, and armed robbery and other criminal activities. Is this not a case of the military doing police work? What do you think?
Well, it's very obvious. It's very obvious because there's an obvious difference between law keeping and war. This is not an activity for the military. But be that as it may, considering the current situation and the current position of our police, which one cannot say to be something that we're happy about, our constitution allows the military to help. But in that case, I don't think the way it's been organized is just the right way. But I think this equally has a kind of a historical antecedent, knowing that from 1999, when President Obasanjo took over as a civilian president, he relied so much on the military. So I'm not surprised that President Buhari is doing the same thing. But if this is the way we want to go, then we may have to find a way to win the hearts and mind of the people. And to do that, the military now need to first start with their own strategic communication to make the people to buy into what they are doing. And secondly, it must have to be a civil military cooperation where you make the people to understand we are here for you. Remember, the South-South, especially Bayelsa, River State, and Delta, suffered so much. If you can remember the crisis where people were massacred, he hasn't left them. And this is an area which we have committed, the Nigerian state have committed a lot of atrocity in terms of structural violence, physical violence, environmental violence, and so on. They do not just see the military as people who come to help us. They see them as an occupational force. So for you to do anything, you have to make them buy into it. I think that's where we have not done much.
And you can't necessarily also blame the people, you know. If we go back to the Odi massacre, like you mentioned, it's reported that over 2,500 people were massacred in this operation. And therefore, this kind of a thing is clearly going to be a sore thumb on the people. So my question to you with regards to the strategic communications of the military is with regards to where the military needs to start making changes. How do the military go about strategically communicating their work to the people when this is the history that lies in front of us?
Okay, first of all, if you read some of the activities of the military in the Crocodile 3, you find out there were part of the things they were doing, like there were places in Efuru, somewhere in Delta State, where they helped in the environmental cleaning of the place. They pulled the people along. They tried to make the people buy into what they were doing. There are places where the military have been able to deliver some medical services, and of which someone like me thinks they should do more. You know, If I see the military in my community reconstructing our bridges, I'm going to say, okay, the state government is not doing it, but the military is doing it. I'm going to buy into what they're doing. But if you look at it, flip it the other side. When the military was proposing this Operation Crocodile 4, they were emphasizing on things like militancy, things that, yes, we know. But remember, most of these people are people who over the years have come to understand that, see, we only have to get something from the oil for us to survive. So you have to do it in such a way that they don't see the negative aspect of it. You project the positive things you've done. And that's what I think the military have done wrong. I was thinking that this Operation Crocodile 4, they would have been emphasizing, yes, they talked about confidence building. They would have emphasized more on the things, non-military things they were doing in the Crocodile 3, telling them, okay, we are coming back to repeat, even do more than what we did, just to make sure that our people are safe, just to make sure that we are together, making the people understand that the military is there for you. I think that's where I think they've not really done a very good job.
Well, Dr. Nwokolo, you will recall that during Crocodile 3, Ijaw youths, in fact, protested. They accused the military of violating human rights, of engaging in extrajudicial killing, of inflicting violence on the people. What can we do this time around, now that it looks like we've been confronted with a fait accompli, to ensure, that the military stay with their own rules of engagement and they do not violate fundamental human rights?
I think let's start from the obvious. The obvious first is that the military is not trained in the fashion we are using them. So we are moving them out of their comfort zone to do what our police cannot do. But based on the situation we found ourselves, how do we make best use of it? If you recall, the Crocodile trade was a kind of a reactionary solution to bandit, to militancy and other things that were piracy that were going on. You may not actually say the same thing of the Crocodile 4. At least we have time to plan for it. Maybe the 3 we didn't plan for it. We just find ourselves, military found themselves going in to deal with the situation. Now, they have enough time to plan for it. So what I think, tactically, they need to plan very well. Because if you have planned tactically, strategically, and you are engaging, you may have a way of trying to prevent going over the board. And what I think in this situation is the military, based on that they've done Crocodile 3, and we're able to accomplish a lot, they can cash in on what they did in Crocodile 3 to reduce whatever casualty or whatever colossal damage they did in the first one, to make sure that it doesn't repeat itself. And part of it is by way of communication, by the way they try to manage the civil-military relationship between them and the people. If they're able to do that, and I think it will work very well. And more importantly, if the military keep out of the political economy of oil theft that is going on in the Niger Delta, it's no longer a hidden thing that there are instances where they indulge in that. We all know that. Research has shown that. There's a work my firm, Nessa SPD, did on oil theft in the Niger Delta, and we mapped out that most of the stakeholders, this is what they were doing. So if the military keep out of things like this, keep out of harassing and trying to intimidate people, and go on to do what they plan to do, I think people will keep buying into the solution.
And, you mentioned that the military are being brought in to do what the police cannot do. And this is a huge part of the problem here. We're not empowering our police force, and there's a serious need to decentralize and restructure the Nigeria police force. Do you feel as though we're looking in the wrong direction when it comes to how we're solving these problems? Should we not be paying more attention to training and prepping our police to carry out such activities, rather than calling on the military to go at it one more time and go back to the same operation in the exact same way and do it again because we're not empowering our police force?
Well, we've talked about this in so many occasions and in so many forums. Everybody knows that it's the right thing to do. We have a police force that is less than 130,000. If you remove those who are following politicians around, you find out that we have less than 100,000. Can 100,000 policemen actually police a population of almost 202 million? If you consider the UN specification of one policeman to 400 people, it means that we actually need almost about 350,000 policemen. We have 100. It's not just enough. And when we are looking at policing, I am one of the advocates of state policing and community policing. People are talking, oh, the governors, a lot of people are against it, saying the governors are going to hijack it. For us not even engaging on how to stop the governors from doing that is even a failure on our part. You know, and I think we should start talking about state policing. How do we do that? There are so many options left for us to do. We can decide to say that for you to become a chief commissioner of a police, you must be from the rank of a retired commissioner of police previously, or a retired chief justice. We can even allow the political parties to feed in candidates. There are so many things we can do. But the issue is that we are just living in denial. We can, this centralization of our police cannot make it to work. You cannot be sending a man who has never been to Kauna Nawuda, or someone from Sokoto who has never been to Akwa Ibom to go there and be a police inspector. It can't work. It can't work. One of my solutions is that we can as well leave our state police. We can as well leave our federal police, but as well allow the state to organize their own state police. Any state that is not interested can stay with the federal police. States that are interested should be allowed to do so. That's what I think.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Nwokolo. We'll take a short commercial break, and then we'll come back to you, and the conversation will continue. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us, we have Dr. Ndu Nwokolo, who is a development specialist. Now, Dr. Nwokolo, you've been talking about state police, and that, of course, is a big matter of interest to many Nigerians. But let's talk about oil theft. I mean, there was a training session of the 81 Brigade in Lagos recently, and at the occasion, the flag officer commanding the Western Naval Command, Rear Admiral Daji, he made a point that we probably need special tribunals to deal with the issue of oil theft, because, as he has seen, many of the oil thieves, after they've been arrested, they get bail, and then they go back to attack the pipelines again. Beyond having a special tribunal to address the matter, what other steps do you think we can take to, address this challenge of oil theft, which is clearly a problem to the Nigerian economy and a source of perpetual headache to the NNPC?
Well, I'm someone who believes in prevention is better than cure. The tribunal, yes, it can work, but for me, that is not the solution. There's this research Nesta SPD did for the European Union, where we talked about community strategy, strategy, which we talked about using the communities in the oil areas to guide the pipelines. Our submission is that you can get these communities, especially their community development association, to form themselves into a group. They get paid, they guide the pipeline. If there are no pipeline breaks, they even get compensation. We worked it out, and the European Union is presently looking at it. Everybody knows that when we started the amnesty program and we decided that we were going to give people who we felt were the big boys in the militancy world the pipeline contracts, we gave them. And the issue of inclusion came in because some people were not included. They went back and started breaking the pipelines again. It never worked. So one of the ways to go about it is to use community pipeline strategy where the communities are involved. If they own it, if they think, see, this oil is part of us, our bread is buttered by because we are guiding the pipelines, then they will guide it with their life. I think that's one method. Secondly, I don't think the amnesty is working. We need to review it. Probably the design, it wasn't designed for it to work. It was designed for it to stay forever. So these are the things we need to look at. And then thirdly, all the stakeholders need to be involved in a way that we look at the PIG bills and find a way around it and sign it. We can't keep going around the circles. These are the things that could help, because in it has the 10% for the oil communities. They want to be involved. If they are involved, they will help in protecting the pipelines and other facilities in the area. So until we get to that point where we start making the communities to own it, then we might not be singing that hallelujah that we want to sing.
Absolutely. And I'd like to take you on to a rather fragile report that came out in several news outlets recently with regards to an investigation that was carried out by a particular civil society organization. And they were checking out they actually rather alleged that 306 billion naira had been paid at gunpoint in the last 50 months at excessive checkpoints, is described in the southeast and the south-south. And reading further down this report, what it basically suggested is that in these particular areas, there are excessive checkpoints because of the security issues we're discussing. But it's also an avenue for people to be extorted and to ridiculous amounts like the figure that we're seeing here. It went further to estimate that this was 600 military and 6,300 police roadblocks that led to this particular figure. Now, I'm not particularly sure on how sure this report is, but I do know that it's circulating in quite a lot of places, and it's quite worrying when we're speaking about the protection of people in these zones. Now, if this is the situation that we're looking at, I mean, states are not in control of the police or the military. The federal government is. So therefore, there's very little the state governments can do in that regard. But how can states better protect their people against these realistic rots that we do have in our system that are very likely to occur in situations like this, especially when we have more operations coming into that zone and, of course, more checkpoints?
For me, this is part of what groups like IPOB have cashed in on to keep fueling, this gospel of secession in the Southeast. But if you look at it, you might be asking the question, which is, how has that protected the people in the Southeast? Incidentally, I'm going to say something a lot of people might not agree with me, but this is what I feel. If you look at this state of kidnapping in the country, Southeast seems to be the safest place in Nigeria now. Not just because you have this army of police and littered all over the roads, but because it's a very small area, and with this number of police checkpoints, it has a bit helped. Because of the way the Southeast is, if you kidnap someone, you're not going to walk up to 3 miles or 3 kilometers in the bush. You're going to enter into one community. And knowing that most of these communities are vigilantes, it's become very difficult. So that's why in the Southeast, when you hear someone is kidnapped, you will not find the person in the bush. You find it in somebody's house. This is unlike in places like in the Northwest, where if somebody is kidnapped, you find the person inside the bush. Now, flip it to your question. I think the state governors are not doing much. I think they know what to do. They should be working through their legislative, their elected members to ask for state police. Again, the next question might be, what are they even doing with the security fund, which no one discloses? They can do a lot. They can do a lot by, trying to empower the police where they think the police is not doing what they want. a situation where you have a state governor who has decided to empower the police, especially if you decided that you don't want to float an alternative vigilante service like the one you have in Anambra, which is supported by the state law and is funded by the state government. Situation where you don't have that, then you have to find a way to help the Nigerian police. But again, to the issue of the extortion, we are in a country where people get to a situation where they see things that are bad as normal. I think it has become a normal in the Southeast, so they no longer complain. But for me, somehow, it's working in their own interest because it's giving them that protection, which is is a fallout of policing the area. So it's actually protecting them, even though at the expense of they are being, exploited by these people who are providing the services for them.
Well, on the question of state police, which I see is something you are very passionate about, what should come first, state police or the restructuring of Nigeria itself that a lot of people have been advocating for? Because the fear is that given the present structure, if you create state police and you allow these governors to truly become, chief security officers in charge of those units, you could have very serious cases of abuse of the state police, being politicized. Shouldn't we restructure Nigeria first? What do you think?
I think the issue of restructuring, a lot of people tend to think is a Herculean task, but I don't think so. Restructuring does not mean you need to tear Nigeria apart and start fixing it. No. It means that we look at the critical things that we think are not working and try to make them work. A lot of people think, whenever they hear restructuring, they think, the South is going to take all the oil and run away and don't bring it back to the table to be shared. No, that's not what it means. There's a lot to restructuring. It includes, like you said, as things like restructuring our police. We can even restructure in such a way that you have a federal police, like I said, and you have a state arrangement. So for me, it's like the chicken and the egg, whichever one you decide to do first. But we all know that we are sitting on a gig of point powder. We have issue with our security. We need to restructure. We need to restructure our security architecture. It's not just working. People are not safe. Kidnapping every day, militancy. Check all parts of the country. Things are not really working well, And these are the things, it didn't just start the last 5 years, It started over the years. And we didn't do much about it. So this is the manifestation. So we need to start doing much, which might include how do we recruit into the Nigerian police? How do we recruit into the Nigerian army? For instance, I will say something here. The Constitution says that the civil defense are in charge of protecting our critical infrastructure. Let's say the pipelines in the northwest, in the south side. You might be asking yourself, have they had a training? Have we really mirrored it into our security architecture to make sure that these guys are well trained? Do they even know what they're protecting? Do they have the skill? Do they have the knowledge to the intelligence to be able to do such service? You don't just ask someone, the Constitution mandates you to protect the critical infrastructure. You have not even trained him, giving him the enabling environment and strength to be able to carry out the duty. So these are part of the reform. So these reforms might not really be that we need to, like I said, tear Nigeria apart and start fixing them. It means looking at critical things. Things like the port. You can't have everything in Nigeria being shipped from the port in Lagos. What is happening to Port Harcourt, Calabar, Warri, Onne,
Well,
Cocoa?
thank you very much.
These are part of the things we should be thinking.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Nwokolo.
Thanks,
That's
Doctor.
how far we'll be able to go. Thank you very much indeed. We look forward to seeing you again.